The rural way of life is about making everyone feel at home. Tractor Supply chose advanced 5G solutions from T-Mobile for Business to transform intelligent customer service. Together, we put the power of AI to work across 2,200 stores, keeping things running seamlessly inside, curbside, and countryside. This is elevated customer experience. This is Tractor Supply with T-Mobile for Business. Take your business further at T-Mobile.com/now.
This episode is brought to you by Netflix. 3 couples, 4 vacations, a lot to unpack. Watch The 4 Seasons, a new series starring comedy favorites Tina Fey, Steve Carell, Will Forte, Coleman Domingo, and more in a hilarious and heartfelt love letter to long-term relationships. Based on the original Alan Alda film. Watch The 4 Seasons, May 1st, only on Netflix.
Welcome back, True Crime Army. I am your host, Margot, and this is Military Murder, a show where I focus on crimes committed by military members and veterans, and sometimes their spouses. But don't worry, you don't have to know anything about the military to listen. You just have to be into all things true crime, and if that's you, welcome home. Today's case is haunting, not because it was committed by someone lying in wait or someone who hired a hitman, but it's haunting because the police had been to the house twice earlier that day, where they spoke to both husband and wife, and they even got a tour of the house by the 4-year-old son of the couple, only to be called back hours later, shots fired, someone is dead. What could have been done? The Florida trial versus Bree Kuhn ended just a few weeks ago, but the details of that case are they just stay in your mind because most of the day was caught on police body cam. And it just goes to show that people are capable of horrible things, regardless of how innocent the situation may seem. Join me today as I tell you the tragic story of Collin Turner, a man unwilling to leave his kids with his wife, who clearly had lost touch with reality. And for this, he paid with his life. Now, let's dig in.
Military murder is an independent project and is not endorsed by the Department of Defense or any military component. The views expressed are those of the host. The content of this podcast is not meant to be legal or medical advice. Warning, this episode contains graphic details of murder and is not suitable for young listeners. Listener discretion is advised.
Warning, this episode does contain 911 audio, which might be distressing for some to hear. Please listen with care. At around 1 p.m. on September 8th, 2021, an off-duty Navy Chief Petty Officer, she's an E7, Bree Kuhn, called 911. You see, Bree and her husband, retired Marine Corps Gunnery Sergeant Collin James Turner, well, they were having a marital disagreement. The couple lived in Gulf Breeze, Florida, which is in the panhandle of Florida, and it's part of Santa Rosa County. Soon after the 911 call, deputies arrived at the home, where they found Collin sitting outside in a camp chair in front of the garage. He's a handsome fellow. He was wearing a yellow baseball cap with sunglasses posted above his head, and although you cannot hear the initial audio, Collin has a smile on his face. It's a mixture of, this is a crazy situation, and so sorry that y'all have been called to this mess. At some point, as a deputy is talking to Collin, he stands up and he's wearing orange basketball shorts and he's holding a water bottle and he points to inside the house and then towards his truck. Body cam footage shows this interaction. And so just FYI, although I don't usually have, kind of body cam footage, in this particular case, there is so much of it. So I will be intertwining it as I tell the story. The first part of this audio is cut out, but when it starts up, you hear the deputies asking about the couple's guns, which, by the way, kudos to cops who put their life on the line every single day going into domestic situations on the daily. Because, I'm not sure if you've heard this, but domestic situations could be the most deadly situations that a police officer can walk into. Here's that audio.
She's got a shotgun and her pistol in the bedroom with her. Okay. And my pistol is on the dashboard of my truck. Okay. Put it there all pretty for you.
Man, you stay out here, man.
I'm just opening. There's a little dog running around. Okay. She won't get it. Go all the way to the wall and then turn right.
Her name's Bree?
Her name's Bree. She's got both the kids in there with her.
Okay. Hey, Miss Bree. Hey.
As you heard, this is a household where they own firearms, so already cops have to be on high alert, although the situation does seem to be calm, cool, and collected. Collin lets the officers into the house, where the deputy begins to walk through a long hallway. Once inside the house, Deputy H calls out to Bree. She's standing between the kitchen and the living room, and ironically, there is a sign on the wall that reads, "Our Happy Place." Once inside the house, Deputy H can be heard making friends with one of the family dogs as he makes his way to the back of the house to the kitchen. And this is where Deputy H starts talking to Bree.
Oh, what are you doing? What are you doing? What's going on today, ma'am?
So my husband is trying to take the kids.
What's up, big guy?
He threw me on the floor and pushed me against the wall.
And this all happened today?
This happened today. We've been having issues over since the weekend.
What are the issues about?
Just typical relationship stuff.
Are you guys married?
Yeah, we're married, but his go-to is to use the kids against me. So he's trying to take them to Georgia. And I don't want them to go.
What's that thing? That little thing and that black thing?
He's gonna.
Which one?
What's that? That
Throw me
little
around
thing
and
and
they can't defend themselves.
that little thing and black thing.
How long have you guys been having problems? I know you said it's been bad since the weekend, but...
Jack, you can hold him.
I mean, on and off, we've been having problems.
I don't need to hold him, buddy. You can hold him.
He's a cool little kitty.
He is a cool kitty.
He's black.
Yeah.
What is this?
That's my key fob for my car out there. Yeah, just hit...
Is this a beeper?
Nope. It don't beep.
The audio is a little hard to understand at first because there is a very inquisitive little person at this house. Bree and Collin have 2 children together, a 4-year-old little boy who I will call Jimmy and a 3-year-old little girl who I will call Lisa. These are not their real names. Both Bree and Collin had a child from previous relationships. Collin's son lived out of state with his mom, and Bree's 12-year-old daughter lived with Bree and Collin. So while the police are visiting the house, there are 2 kids at the home, in addition to a few dogs that you will sporadically hear barking and a cat which little Jimmy tries to hand off to the cop. The 12-year-old daughter is at school and is expected back home in roughly 45 minutes. So during this conversation, Bree told the deputy that her and her husband had been having issues since the weekend. She said that on that day, her husband pushed her into the wall and threw her down on the floor. Deputy H asked her if everything happened that day, and she said yes, but that the issues had started over the weekend. Bree confirmed that they were married, but that they were having typical relationship problems, and that Collin's, quote, go-to was to use the kids against her. And now he's trying to take the kids to Georgia. As you can hear in this audio, she says again that she doesn't want him taking the kids, then says she's been talking to lawyers, and then she drops a bombshell. She says that Collin raped her over the weekend. But she says it so quickly that I'm not even sure the cop understood what she said, because Jimmy kept talking and then someone says something over the police radio. A little bit later, Bree does clearly say that Collin raped her, but initially when she said it, it was lost. Deputy H asks Bree if she has any marks on her body. Bree kind of looks at her arms and her legs and then says no. The deputy tells her that he needs to see some kind of marks or bruises to be able to prove battery. It's a little disheartening hearing this from the police because shoves don't usually leave marks, at which point you see Bree is a little frustrated, and then she smiles and says,
I need something else.
So next time I'll just make sure that he punches me in the face.
That's not what I'm saying at all.
While she's talking, she looks like she might be crying, but then she smiles. Deputy H corrects her and says that's not what he's saying. He tells her again that if there's nothing that proves that she was hurt, then it won't go anywhere in court. The deputy goes on to ask if there is video or if the kids witnessed anything, to which Bree shakes her head no. Deputy H explains to her about making a statement about what happened and that they can't get involved in anything regarding the kids. Bree says she just wants to get her kids and get out of there. Then she can fill something out later. As Deputy H makes his way back outside to talk to Collin, Bree can be heard telling the kids to get a suitcase and pack. While Deputy H was inside with Bree, Deputy Q spoke with Collin about the events leading to the 911 call. And here's a little bit of that conversation.
You want a summary or you want my detailed notes?
I want you to tell me what happened and why she called us.
So, She called you right now because she figured out that I want to take my kids to my parents' house in Georgia for her and I to have more for me. I guess me to have a break from her. A little bit of backstory: in March, she tried to kill herself and did inpatient. After she was inpatient and then she was outpatient group for a while, she got kicked out of that group, and then went back in, Baker acted a second time for suicidal ideations, and there she was diagnosed with borderline personality disorder. Are you familiar? Mm-hmm. So she was diagnosed with borderline personality disorder in March or April. Got kicked out of her first therapy group, got kicked out of her second therapy group, and she skipped her last 2 individual therapies.
Okay. Well, what leads us to what's going on today? Because that's not being rude, but that's irrelevant to what's going on right now as far as she called us.
Yeah, so about 11 o'clock last night, she wanted to watch TV in the bedroom while me and the kids were sleeping in there. I didn't want her to, because we were all sleeping. And she got mad and stormed out to the living room and watched TV out there. Tried to talk to her out there. She told me to go away, so I went back in the bedroom. 10 minutes later, she comes in the bedroom and says, "Get out." I say, "No." "Now." I say, "No." So she lays down in the bed with the other 3 of us and turns on the TV. So, for context, we normally watch it at 10. She turned it at 30 until like 1 a.m. I turned it down a couple times. I eventually said, "Look, if you don't turn it down, I'm going to turn the Wi-Fi off to this TV." And she turned it up. So I turned the Wi-Fi off of that TV. She said, "Really, you're going to be vindictive?" I said, "I'm not being vindictive. I want you to turn it down, because at this point it's, 12:30 or 1 a.m. or something like that. Everybody's sleeping except for you, and you want to watch." You ever watch The 100?
I've heard about it. I haven't sat down and watched it.
Explosions and people screaming.
Okay.
It's not a nice, quiet, conversational show. So anyway, she says, "I'll show you vindictive," and goes out in the living room and puts around for a while, and then comes back and puts on like a rap pop music station on her phone, blasting that, and she goes to sleep. I'm laying there with the kids, and that was about 1. At about 1:30, 1:47, I think, I'm like laying there wide awake, and at that point, she was snoring, so I'm like, all right, fuck this. And I would have gone to the couch before, but she wouldn't let me take the kids, and I don't really trust her with the kids when she's like this. Mm-hmm. So she was sleeping, so I took I grabbed my 4-year-old, I went out to pee, took my 4-year-old to the couch, and then she woke up and started yelling at me again. "What are you doing? I'm taking the kids to the couch." "The fuck you aren't."
And that was all.
What's up?
Last night, right? Rolled into this morning?
Yeah, this is probably right around 2 a.m. at this point.
Okay. So what happened today causing her to pick the phone up and call? I guess she called 911. I didn't look.
She found out I was I was packing my car.
That's what the upset was?
Yes.
That you're going to Georgia to see their grandparents?
Yep.
And your parent?
Yeah, they're my parents.
Okay. And your kid's grandparent, actually?
Yep.
Okay. And she didn't and is she was she allowed to go? Like, did you plan on her coming?
No, I didn't plan on her coming.
Okay, you're just going to do it, take a break?
Yeah.
And they're your kids, right?
They're my kids.
Okay, y'all are married, had kids?
Married.
They're your blood?
They're both of our kids, and then I have a stepdaughter who's probably going to be here in about 45 minutes from school. Okay. And my stepdaughter is fully hers legally, and her dad lives in Alabama, but he doesn't have any legal control. Mm-hmm. And she told me before, if Kylie's my 12-year-old, she said, I can't stop you from taking the little kids because they're yours, but if you take my 12-year-old, I will press charges on you. Well, fuck, so I have to leave the 12-year-old with you to be borderline. So, after she had said, "I'll show you vindictive" last night, I thought she meant she came in and put the music on. I found this morning my laptop was missing. So I'm looking all around the house for it, and finally, wait a minute, the dishwasher was running all night. Put my fucking MacBook in the dishwasher. $2,500 computer. And then
it's unfortunate.
Cut me off from all the credit cards she has control over. She's the primary breadwinner in the family. And yeah, I said, you washed my $2,500 computer because I turned off your show? No, because you controlled my access to the Wi-Fi. That's also not. a legitimate reason.
Sure.
So this is the start, well, I guess, culmination of a long bad path.
Okay.
And it's not healthy for the kids to be around it. She's made repeated comments to the kids, the 3 and 4-year-old, since, well, today.
Well,
So the police are coming to save us because Daddy hurt Mommy. No. First of all, I didn't. Second of all, you don't tell a child that.
sure.
What's your name again, man?
Collin talks about Bree's mental health diagnosis and how she was kicked out of 2 therapy groups and that she stopped going to her individual therapy. He describes how they got into it in the middle of the night over the volume of the TV while the kids were trying to sleep in their bed. As everything was going on, Deputy Q explains about marital property and if things escalate that he should use his cell phone to record what Bree is saying and doing. About that time, Deputy H joined Deputy Q outside and then he started asking Collin about what was going on. And so I found it interesting that I did find a podcast that covered the 911 calls in this episode. And that podcast is called the Comm Center Audio Podcast. And it's run by a previous, or I'm not sure if he's a previous or a current 911 operator, but also like a police officer. And so it's pretty cool because they explain how police protocol works. And so what they explained is that at each situation, 2 cops will arrive. One cop will speak to one party and then the other cop will speak to the other party and then they kind of do a swap. And the whole point is so that they can kind of figure out what each person is saying and then the cops will get together and kind of discuss to see if there was overlap or any differences in stories or kind of like, what did you get? What was the gist? That type of thing. So that's what happens in this case. So Deputy H originally spoke to Bree, Deputy Q originally spoke to Collin, and then there was like a switch. So at that point, Collin says that he would let Bree take the kids if it weren't for her mental health issues and diagnosis. He also quickly says, hey, let's not forget her suicide attempts. Today's episode is sponsored by Acorns, and April is Financial Literacy Month, an entire month dedicated to taking control of your money. Because honestly, no one really taught me how to manage money growing up. I didn't learn about investing until I was well into adulthood. But what I love about Acorns is that it makes it easy to start saving and investing for your future in just 5 minutes. I know, April is an entire month, but you don't need an entire month to learn. You don't need to be an expert. Acorns recommends a diversified portfolio that matches you and your goals. You can start with just your spare change, and you don't need a lot of time. Setup takes just 5 minutes because I know that your time is precious. And if financial wellness has ever felt out of reach, Acorns makes it simple, giving your money a chance to grow without the overwhelm. Personally, using Acorns gave me the confidence to stop putting it off and just start. And that peace of mind is completely worth it. Sign up now and join over 14 million all-time customers who've already saved and invested over $25 billion with a B dollars with Acorns. Head to acorns.com/militarymama or download the Acorns app to get started today. Paid non-client endorsement. Compensation provides incentive to positively promote Acorns. Tier 1 compensation provided. Investing involves risk. Acorns Advisors, LLC, an SEC registered investment advisor. View important disclosures at acorns.com/militarymama.
Starting a business can seem like a daunting task, unless you have a partner like Shopify. They have the tools you need to start and grow your business. From designing a website to marketing to selling and beyond, Shopify can help with everything you need. There's a reason millions of companies like Mattel, Heinz, and Allbirds continue to trust and use them. With Shopify on your side, turn your big business idea into... Sign up for your $1 per month trial at shopify.com/special offer.
Deputy H provides a piece of paper and a pen to Collin to fill out his statement and then brings one inside to Bree as well. She asks what to do if he hits her again. And Deputy H also explains to her about using her cell phone to record a video so that she has, proof. Well, it's during this time when everyone should be writing their statements that Bree transfers the kids' car seats out of Collin's pickup truck and puts them into her SUV parked next to it in the driveway. Now, just FYI, Collin is a retired Marine and he's the primary caretaker for the children, while Bree is full-time active duty military. At this point, Bree transfers the car seats out of Collin's pickup truck and puts them in her SUV. And the entire time, the kids are playing and Collin is sitting in his lawn chair inside the garage where he had moved to fill out his statement. After everything is settled, Deputy H provides his business card to both Bree and Collin. At that point, the 4-year-old comes up to Collin in tears because he bumped his head, and Collin picks him up and cuddles him to soothe him. After Collin picked up the little boy, the deputy invites the little boy to come over and look inside his patrol SUV because the little boy had been basically just handsy with the police officer, trying to touch his belt and everything. So Collin carries the little boy over and holds him as they look at it. When the 4-year-old wants to sit in the back, Deputy H and Collin explain to him why that's not a good idea. And I think it's really precious because Collin gives a good dad explanation, basically saying there's dirty poop back there. They let a cat back there and it's dirty. And sometimes people throw up back there and the police have to clean it up. So at this point, the deputies leave and the couple is left to their own devices. And that first 911 call happened at around midday. But just a few hours later, at about 4:58 p.m., Collin is the one calling 911. He reports that after the first 2 cops left, Bree locked him out of the house, at which point Collin called Bree's military command to explain what was going on. Bree had cut off his finances and all access to credit cards. Then at some point, Bree unlocks the door to bring the 3-year-old daughter out to Collin because she won't stop crying. The responding officer is Deputy L. Upon driving up, he finds Collin standing at the bottom of the driveway holding his 3-year-old daughter in his arms. Bree is standing on the side of the driveway. Nothing really has changed. At this point, Collin is she locked me out of the house. She took my wallet and my ID. He basically claims that while she was moving the car seats, that she took his wallet and his ID. The cop asks Bree, hey, did you take his stuff? And she claims she didn't. Collin is is she allowed to lock me out of my house? And the police tell him, no, not really. I mean, it's joint property. So if you need to break a window just to get in, I mean, that's cool. Nothing new ends up happening during this check and the deputies depart again. And then at 6:22 p.m., Collin calls 911 to report that Bree had locked him in the garage again. So if you're keeping track, this is the 3rd time the police have been called to this house within hours. As I advised earlier, this next call is absolutely distressing. Please fast forward a few minutes if you do not want to hear it.
Hi, you guys have been out to my house twice today, and then most recently the deputy talked my wife into letting me in the house, and then she locked me in the garage and tried to break my arm when I was trying to get back inside.
What's your gun, sir?
She's currently got me locked in the garage because earlier she broke both of the big doors, and then when I came out here to fix it after getting in the house earlier, she locked the door behind me. And then when I tried to come out,
what was that?
You just shot me.
She just shot him. I just heard 4 shots. So are you there? So we need to get somebody there. He's not answering.
Now, as I listened to the trial and watched as the prosecution played this in court, you can physically see Bree jump when she heard the first shot. The audio is haunting, not because you hear someone's last words, although that is part of it, but because you can tell that Collin was shot in cold blood. Bree didn't even flinch. She didn't speak. She didn't say, oh my gosh, what did I do? Nothing. Also surprising because where are the kids? They were so rambunctious earlier that day. Now it's pure silence. Well, there will be more on this in a moment. After that 911 call, cops race back to the Turner Kuhn residence, and an ambulance is not far behind. The body cam footage you are about to hear next is from Deputy L, who arrives after Bree is outside and being placed into the back of the police car. She's explaining to them where the kids are and how old they are.
Dad,
I don't know yet, ma'am. I just got here.
no, I'm fine. I took my kids. My husband is.
Are the kids in the house?
No, they're with the neighbor. Any other? I have nothing. Thing on you that I need to be aware of? Nothing. Anything in your bra? No. Bra on? I do have a bra. So that's all important. Make sure you have everything in it, okay? It's a nursing bra. Okay. He's dead. I saw him and I tried to help, but he was dead.
Well, let's not talk about that right now, okay?
My kids don't have a dad or a mom now. And it's my fault. And he's right.
All right.
So right now, we're just gonna do this for right now, okay?
So you're taking for ours, okay?
I'm a murderer.
Listen, you're not listening to me. You're not under arrest right now. You're being detained. Okay, we'll investigate.
No, you could arrest me. I killed my husband. Hopefully I just shot him. Maybe he's not dead. He should not be dead.
Double lock her up.
How come they're not going to get him? The ambulance.
I think they need to talk to you too.
So, will the ambulance go get him?
It's clear that maybe Bree Kuhn is in shock as she asks, is he dead? Deputy L answers that he doesn't know, but she rambles on for a bit and says that her kids don't have a dad or a mom and that they should arrest her because, quote, I killed my husband. I won't play this next footage for you, but there is other deputy body cam that from the initial responder, and Bree is not handcuffed, nor is she being restrained physically. In fact, the police even call her sweetheart, and someone asks if she's in shock. As the new deputy takes her to walk across the street, you can actually hear the supervisor quietly whisper, this is the shooter. Anyway, by 8 p.m. that evening, Bree Kuhn was in an interrogation room at the Santa Rosa Sheriff's Office. She's seen sitting in a chair by a table shivering. She was barefoot and still wearing the same clothing that she was seen wearing earlier that day on body cam footage. And I should add that Bree didn't even have a speck of blood on her clothing or body. Well, someone comes down from the hall with a sweater that the deputy places over Bree. About a minute later, a detective comes in with a space heater and turns it on to try to help Bree warm up. Once the heater is turned on, the audio is a little harder to hear, but Bree asks the deputy if she can call her dad. The deputy told her that it would be up to the lead detective, she says the main guy. The detectives come in and immediately Bree asks if she can call her dad. One of them tells her that it will be a little while until she can call her dad. The interviewer begins the interview by telling Bree that he has spoken to a lot of people that day, but he wanted to hear from her since she was the most important person to talk to that day. He went on to read Bree her Miranda rights. Bree asked if she was under arrest. The detective told her that she was just being detained and not under arrest at that moment. He then asked her to tell her side of what happened that day. So Bree told the detectives that she had called 911 first that day because Collin was threatening to take the kids. She said that Collin told her that no judge in the world would give her custody of the children because she had tried to kill herself. Bree told them that Collin had pushed her up against the wall, then pushed her down to the floor. She said that Collin told her that no one would believe her because she was a crazy bitch. Then Bree told the detectives that the deputies wouldn't do anything because she didn't have any marks on her and because there weren't any witnesses, which is true. It's all on body cam footage. That is what the police told her. Bree described how she got the kids' stuff out of Collin's truck and put it into her own car while the deputies were talking to Collin. Her plan at that point was to leave with the kids, which is interesting because she didn't want him to leave with the kids. He didn't want her to leave with the kids, and both had equal access to the kids. Bree also told the detectives that while she was in Collin's car, she grabbed his garage door opener. Bree said while Collin was still in the garage, he was on the phone with her command. She said that she closed and locked the door behind her. Then she took the batteries out of the locks because it was like one of those keypad style locks that you need to have batteries in. And she did this so that Collin couldn't come in and take the kids. At this point during her confession, Bree starts to break down crying. The detective hands her some Kleenex and she continues saying that she didn't want the kids to see them fighting. She then explained that at some time during the day, the kids were napping and then their 3-year-old daughter woke up. Bree said that she was trying to call and text Collin while he was in the driveway, and the detective asked how long he was out there, and Bree responded that he was out in the driveway for about an hour. Bree said that when their 3-year-old wakes up, that she can be super confused and inconsolable, so usually Bree and Collin would take turns trying to calm her down. Well, on this day, when the 3-year-old woke up and wouldn't stop crying even though Bree was attempting to console her, the little girl kept calling out for daddy. So Bree took the little girl to her daddy who was outside and basically locked out of the house, where Collin took the child and then he didn't have access to the house. While inside, Bree continued to text Collin asking if this was the path he wanted to go down because she didn't want to fight in front of the kids, allegedly. When she went back out to get their daughter, Bree found out that Collin had called the police this time and that he had told them that she had mental health issues and that she was being unreasonable. Bree said that Collin had also told the 911 dispatcher that he didn't trust Bree with the kids alone. So going on, Bree told the detectives that it wasn't true, that he was just trying to take the kids because she told him she wanted a divorce. Bree said she had a few upcoming appointments with divorce attorneys because she just wanted to get divorced and not fight in front of the kids. During the interview, Bree basically said, well, after Collin called the police, the cops made me let him back into the house. Bree now takes a pause and she asks to call her dad again. But the detective said no, and then they asked her what happened next. Bree said she didn't remember much, but that she had called her mom. Before she realized it, Collin was back in the garage, and that's when Bree took the opportunity and locked Collin inside the garage. After that, she said she opened the door to try to talk to Collin, and he tried to come inside, so she tried to close the door again, which explains why during the third 911 call, Collin says that Bree tried to break his arm. According to Bree, from the outside, inside the garage, Collin kicked her foot and was trying to push the door open, and she was trying to keep it closed. She kind of mumbles, but says, I shot him. Bree says something about closing the door, then bringing the kids out to the back to go to the neighbor's house. She said she saw a kid riding his bike and told him to call 911. Then she went to her neighbor's house and banged on the door. She told the neighbor to call 911 as well, and that she had to go back to help Collin because, quote, she shot him. The detective asks Bree how many times she shot him. Bree says she doesn't know and that she didn't mean to shoot him. Then she says it was at least twice. And again, she says, I didn't mean to shoot him. Bree said Collin had a look on his face that he was going to kill her, and that's why she shot him. The detective asked Bree if she already had the gun in her hand when she got to the door, and she answered that she thought so, but then said she didn't know. This next part of her confession is a little bit confusing to me, but Bree says that when she went back to try to help Collin, she couldn't get into the front door because she had taken the batteries out of the lock. So she ran around to the back and tried to open the garage door. She said she was screaming because she couldn't open the door. Her statement is pretty chaotic. She says something about getting the neighbors and then asks if Collin was dead, then says he was dead, then asks again if he's dead. The detective says, yes, Collin has passed away. Bree asks again at this point if she could speak to her dad, but the detective reminds her that this interview is very important and they need to get through it first. Then the detective asks Bree where the gun was. She says she put it in the kitchen. The detective was like, okay, but normally where do you keep it? And she says they normally keep it in the closet. Then Bree tells them that they have 3 guns. The detective asks if she and Collin shared a closet, and she says yes, they did share one. Bree then explains that they have a shotgun that is kept out, and the handgun isn't locked up, but it's put up high. I'm assuming she's talking about a handgun, but anyway. Then the detective asks the $1 million question. Why did she have the gun when she went to the door of the garage where Collin was? And she said she just wanted to go. Then Bree starts to ask them why no one arrested Collin when she first called the police that day. Why didn't they just arrest him? I didn't want him dead, she says. One of the detectives asks Bree where the kids were when all of this was happening. And Bree kind of changes the subject. She starts to say, oh my gosh, they don't have a dad. Oh my gosh. And Bree finally answers the question. She says that the kids were in her room. The detective asks if they normally hang out in there, and she says she didn't know. They asked if all 3 kids were in there, including her 12-year-old daughter, to which Bree responds yes. And at this point, Bree asks the police if they had called her in-laws to come get the kids. The detectives asked what was Collin doing when she went into the garage? Like, what was he working on? Was he on the phone? To which she responds, there was just so much blood. I've never seen anybody dead. Then Bree said that he should have just let her kill herself. When the detective asked why, she angrily said back, because then he wouldn't be dead. Despite the fact that this woman just confessed to killing her husband, the detective assures Bree that Collin wouldn't have wanted her to hurt herself. A few seconds go by, then Bree says she doesn't want to talk about it anymore and that she just wants to talk to her dad. The detectives tell her that it's important that she explain to them what happened from her perspective.
That moment when you realize your skincare is actually working. That's Rodan & Fields, the #1 female dermatologist-founded skincare brand in the U.S. Designed by 2 dermatologists who don't just know women's skin, they know how to formulate for it. Rodan & Fields, love what you see. Tap the banner or visit rodanandfields.com/Spotify to get your exclusive welcome offer.
Ladies, you'll end up shopping for your guy's deodorant, right? So try Degree's Original Cool Rush. You see, last year, Degree changed the formula, and men were mad. One guy even started a petition. So Degree admitted they messed up and brought the Original Cool Rush scent back. It's clean, crisp, and actually smells like someone you want to cuddle. And it's in Walmart, Target, and other stores now for under $4. So toss one in your cart and find out why it's the best-selling men's antiperspirant for the last decade. Degree Cool Rush is back, and it smells like victory.
At about 9 p.m., detectives bring in a phone that she can only use on speakerphone. The detective says he's going to give her some privacy and leaves, but clearly the whole conversation is still being video and audio recorded. I'm going to play a little bit of Bree's conversation with her father, but I'm actually going to be putting out another episode that has the whole conversation because I do think it is a little bit of a bizarre conversation, but here goes.
Hello?
Daddy.
Hey. Where are you?
I'm in an office. Daddy.
You're at the police?
Yeah.
You're at the police station?
Yeah.
All right. Whew.
I killed Collin.
I know you did, Sophie. I know you did. I just trying to figure out why. Threatening you or... The kids okay?
No, they don't. Like, their dad is dead. And I'm belong in jail. I'm sure I'm going to jail. I think...
So are you in now, or you're being allowed? Is this a phone call you're allowed?
Yeah, they said I could call you.
Have you, obviously it's early, we haven't figured out what the course of action is, but are you going to need a lawyer or are you going to plead? Well, anyway, I'll ask you this later.
What do you think?
I
don't know, Daddy. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, you're not going to know. I mean, this is a shock.
We have to choose weekend. He's my best friend.
Hold on, speak clearly. No, I'm not here to...
I know.
All right, you have to what?
We had such a good weekend. He's
That's what I heard.
my best friend.
Parents said you guys had a great weekend, but for some reason, Collin started this thing last night with you. I mean, you obviously didn't put his computer in the washer. We're clear on that, right?
He's dead.
He did, right?
He's dead.
Oh, yes, he is. I'm sorry about that. I'm very sorry. Where are... all right, I'll be able to find out the answers to these things tomorrow. Do you want us to come down there? Is there anything we can do? I know it's a little early to start figuring this stuff out because you're still in shock.
Now, is it just me or is this the calmest dad ever? I mean, it's crazy to hear Bree say that she had such a good weekend. He's my best friend, but I killed him. But wait a minute, didn't she tell the police that he raped her over the weekend? So how could she have said that they had a good weekend? So some can say whatever they want about that situation. But what I think she lied about to her dad is that when she says she tried to help Collin, she says, I tried to help him, but when you see her shirt and her clothes, there is not a bit of blood on her, not on her hands, not on anything. So she's clearly lying. Also, I'm sure it's not weird to everyone, but I think it's weird in this particular situation because she keeps calling her father daddy. But anyway, as I said, I'm going to release another episode with that full conversation. because I do find it a little bit interesting. It should come as no surprise that Bree Kuhn went to jail and was charged with 1 count of premeditated murder pending her trial. Bree's trial was set. She would face a jury of her own peers, with Judge James Duncan presiding. So let's get into the trial details. On day 1 of the trial, which was September 24th, 2024, after opening statements, the prosecutor, Mark Alderman, began presenting the state's case against Bree Kuhn. And when we talk about a case that has evidence, this is one of them. Body cam footage, 911 calls, interrogations, you name it, it's here. The first witnesses called were deputies who had responded to the 911 calls during the day prior to Collin being shot. An evidence tech testified to what was observed and collected at the scene, including bullet casings. The next witness on the stand was Bree's supervisor at the time of the shooting, now retired Command Master Chief Craig Foran. At the time, Bree was his assistant and helped him manage his calendar and day-to-day taskings. Bree was assigned to him as a limited-duty sailor. The reason Bree was on limited duty was so that she could receive aftercare in an intensive outpatient program following a suicide attempt. Well, on September 8th, 2021, it wasn't until noon that Chief Foran noticed that Bree hadn't reported to work. So he texted her to check in. She said she was okay, so Chief Foran gave her an assignment. After giving Bree an assignment, the chief went to a meeting. But the meeting was interrupted when the executive secretary said that Collin was on the phone and needed to speak to the executive officer. Chief Foran and the XO left the meeting and took the call from Collin. This is a portion of Chief Foran's testimony on what happened during that call with Collin.
Now, Mr. Foran, prior to this conversation here on 9/8, had you ever spoken with Collin before?
No, sir.
Okay. What did Collin inform you was happening during this phone conversation?
At that point, he said that Bree had removed their access to the financial information, as well as he put his computer through the dishwasher. He also, at that point, he also informed me that she had been missing her therapy appointments and had been skipping work over the past several days. And then he told me, or he told us, XO and I, that he wanted to take their children back home to his parents' home in Georgia. And then he also informed us at that time that the sheriff's office at some point that morning had come to their home as well.
Okay, and about what time was that conversation? Do you remember?
That was about 1400 or 2 o'clock.
And during this conversation, what was Collin's demeanor?
He was very calm, very very articulate and well spoken.
Was he angry?
No, sir. It was just a very general, casual conversation like we're having now. It wasn't, it wasn't escalated or anything. It wasn't any holler or screaming. Just it seemed very reasonable to me.
Now he's reporting to you that she has cut off his access to finances. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Is that? Let me ask you, how does the military deem that, or is there anything the military can do about that for a military spouse?
This is a bit of a long answer. So when we look at a couple of things here, we call it spouse emotional abuse and things like that. We determine, or not we, but the Navy says when you remove financial capabilities or you start causing damage to people's equipment or stuff, it's a form of emotional abuse.
And is there anything the military can do in terms of assisting in terms of the financial aspect?
Okay, so in a situation like this, we don't have the authority to tell her what she can and can't do with her finances. But what we do have is a program is called the Family Advocacy Program, and that's designed to help families that are struggling. And then it's a long process how we get here, but ultimately there's a kind of again conversations about what happened, and we find the best way to help the family. And then in the cases where we'll call domestic violence is involved, we'll make try to make our best determination if we need to separate the family or put them in what we call a cool down room. When I say the family, though, I really mean the service member. I think that's what you're asking me.
Yes, sir. And if I understood you correctly, did you say that the military would consider cutting off someone's finances to be a form of emotional abuse? Is that what I understood you to say?
That's correct, on our family advocacy program.
Sort of at the conclusion of this conversation, was Collin given any guidance or any further people that he could contact? You mentioned the family advocacy program.
Oh, yes, sir. So at the end of this conversation, we kind of left off. I asked him, did he feel safe in the current situation, in which he responded he did. And then I also gave him the number to our family advocacy counselor as well, so he could communicate to them, and that would help, again, help them with their family struggles as well.
And when you say you asked him if you felt safe, was that a standard question you asked in these kind of situations?
Yes, sir. Typically when I get a spouse calling, or even any kind of event, what I call a family flare-up, I always want to make sure, safety is always the number one goal. So I always ask those questions. Do you feel safe?
And after this conversation ended with Collin, did you have any concerns about either his safety or Bree's safety?
Not at all.
After this conversation, did you have any other conversations with Collin?
No, that was the last time he and I talked.
And after that conversation, did you speak with Bree?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And did she give you some indication?
Chief Foran went on to say that the commanding officer did not order Bree to leave her children and move into the barracks. She and Collin both told him that they did not feel as if they were in danger. Also, Bree turned down the offer to stay in a cool-down room on base because she figured if she left the house, Collin would surely take the kids to Georgia. Bree did inform her boss that her intent was to file for a temporary custody order of the kids the following day. Another piece of evidence introduced in this case was video evidence that Bree took on her cell phone on the day of the murder, but it was earlier in the day. Bree recorded the video on her cell phone, and it was at 12:57 p.m. after the first 911 call was made, but before the second. Most of the video is upside down or completely black, and Bree could be heard consoling their 4-year-old son who is crying. Bree asks, "What did Daddy do?" You can't really hear what he says back. She takes both kids to one of the bedrooms where there isn't much conversation recorded. Bree exits the bedroom and tells the kids to come on and they'll find something to eat. She sets the phone face down so the recording, as I said, it was black, but the audio continues. You can hear Collin say that he's looking for his wallet. Bree answers with a question about if they were going to be walking around for the next week recording each other and not talking. Collin answers saying it would be a good start if she told him where his stuff was. Bree answers that she doesn't have his stuff. Collin asked the kids if they knew where his stuff was, and then he and Bree had a brief discussion about what she did with his things that were in the truck. The conversation is brief, but Collin never raises his voice on the video. You can tell that Bree is being argumentative. On day 2 of the trial, Florida versus Bree Kuhn, the Santa Rosa County Chief Medical Examiner, Dr. Oleski, testified that Collin died as a result of multiple gunshot wounds, but they were not able to determine the order of the gunshots. As they examined Collin's body, the first assessed bullet wound they looked at indicated that the bullet entered his upper back near his left shoulder and tore through his shoulder at an upward angle, then went back through his 6th and 7th cervical vertebrae, fracturing them. The bullet exited out of the right side of his neck, then re-entered through the inside of his right wrist, breaking his wrist bones, and then the bullet stopped. The second bullet wound the ME examined was also on the left side of Collin's upper back. The bullet's trajectory was from back to front and in an upward angle. It went through a rib, through his left lung, through the front side ribs, and exited out of the upper left side of his chest. The third bullet wound was on the right upper back, through a rib on his right side, through his right lung, and exited through the center of his chest. This bullet's trajectory went straight through Collin's body from the back to the front without any angle. The fourth bullet wound entered through the lower left part of his torso, went through his spleen, diaphragm, and then through his heart. The bullet lodged above his heart inside his chest with the trajectory of the bullet in this wound at an upward angle. It was the ME's opinion that Collin could have died from any of the 4 gunshots if given enough time to bleed out. However, she believed that the one that hit his heart would have caused Collin's death the fastest. The cause of death was multiple gunshot wounds, and the manner of death was homicide. Detective David Rowell from the Santa Rosa County Sheriff's Office Major Crimes Unit testified about the crime scene and his partner's interview with Bree Kuhn in the hours following the shooting. He stated that they allowed her to call her father after she had asked multiple times. They played the nearly hour-long video of Bree's first interview that took place that night. On the stand, the prosecutor asked the detective if at any point during Bree's interview She had mentioned that Collin had raped her or threatened the kids' safety or threatened to kill the kids or say anything about the gun, anything. Detective Rowell answered no to each question. The prosecutor then asked about Bree, saying that Collin kicked her and that he was going to kill her. Detective Rowan answered that in her first version, she said that Collin kicked her, but clarified that Collin had a look, not that he had said he wanted to kill her. Detective Rowell also clarified that Bree never responded to his repeated questions about what Collin had in his hands or what he was doing in the garage when she shot him. It was clear that the prosecution had plenty of evidence. The question was, what angle would Bree's defense take? Well, the defense team, made up of attorneys Randy Etheridge and James Barnes, called their first witness Bree's older brother, Eric Kuhn. The defense's strategy was to claim that Bree suffered from battered spouse syndrome and that she was the victim of sexual, physical, and mental abuse at the hands of her husband, Collin. Eric Kuhn attempted to substantiate those claims through his testimony. The defense asked Eric about his and Bree's childhood. He responded that they suffered terrible physical abuse at the hands of their mother. Then they asked about a trip that Eric took with Bree and Collin about 2 years before the shooting. Eric said that they had told him they were having some marital issues and hoped that a getaway would help. He was invited because Collin was taking a class at the time and Eric could be there to hang out with Bree, and if Collin took a break, they could hang out together, which I think is super weird. Eric further claimed that he was on the phone with Bree when she tried to overdose, and that when he called Collin to get help, he claimed that Collin refused to help his sister who had just overdosed. Eric had to call the medics to get her help instead. Eric also claimed that when detectives Kelly and Rowell came to Pennsylvania to question him, they didn't give him a warning and they just showed up at his place of business. So put a pin in that because we're going to get back to that in just a minute. So this is Eric talking about the day of the shooting.
Now, the final call, you actually heard the shots, correct?
Yes, sir.
Tell the jury what was the length of that call.
It was quite some time we were on the phone.
Was it like 45 minutes?
I would say so, sir.
And what are you hearing during that time?
In my sister's voice, utter fear. And then I heard a lot of discourse, Collin screaming, things being hit. At one point, he was on the phone with the police, I believe, trying to tell them that my sister was doing something, and she was on the phone with me.
Did you ever hear Collin make any threat, raise his voice, or anything of that nature?
I did hear his voice raised a few times, yes, and I did hear at some point children crying.
First, how were you aware that your sister got a gun? Did she tell you?
I believe she did. I believe she said that's how she was going to protect the kids.
Prior to the shots going off, did you hear your sister say anything?
She kept saying that he was not going to kill the kids, and the kids were crying.
And you're not there. You hear the shots. Did you say anything after that?
I was crying and yelling, "Oh my God!" And she told me, "I killed him. I have to call the cops," and hung up. I tried calling her back. There was no answer.
So Eric talks about being on the phone with Bree for 45 minutes. And he even says that he was on the phone when Bree shot Collin. He also says he heard kids screaming and a scuffle. But you all heard the 911 call that Collin made. It was silent. And also it's interesting because during her interrogation, Bree said she had been talking to her mom. So it's possible that she could have been talking to her mom and her brother at the same exact time. But I think that this is all interesting. During the cross-examination, the prosecution was able to discredit Bree's brother, Eric, bringing to light that his testimony that day was way different than his statement to police immediately after Collin's death. At this point in the trial, the defense informed the judge that Bree would be taking the stand in her own defense. And if you gasped very loudly, same. Well, after the lunch break on day 2, the judge began to discuss the right against self-incrimination and taking the stand. At which point, Bree actually giggled out loud briefly. There is then a short break where Bree discusses taking the stand with her attorney, and a last-minute decision is made that Bree will not be taking the stand. The court then takes another brief recess while Judge Duncan reviews case law about allowing testimony regarding a defendant having PTSD and allowing an expert, in this case a doctor, to testify without the defendant taking the stand. So, real briefly, Bree was intending to take the stand, and then after she took the stand, because she was going to talk about PTSD, they were going to present an expert that was also going to talk about PTSD. But now that Bree was no longer taking the stand, the defense was still trying to get the expert to come in and talk about PTSD. Okay. Upon his return, Judge Duncan pointed out that the defense had introduced battered spouse syndrome, but not PTSD as a reason for Bree's actions. The prosecution also stated that prior to trial, he had not been given any indication or any notice from the defense's expert witness that they would be using that diagnosis, specifically PTSD, to prove Bree's innocence. Judge Duncan determined that based on case law, that since Bree wasn't going to be taking the stand, her expert would not be allowed to take the stand and speak about their patient and what the patient told them during therapy. At this point, the judge spoke directly to Bree, asking if she fully understood the pros and cons of testifying or not testifying. Bree stated that she did. Judge Duncan then asked her what she chose to do. At that point, Bree declined to testify on her own behalf, and the trial ended for the day.
We off? 30 seconds of carefree bliss. Oof, like wind in your hair carefree. Oh, like using Clorox Disinfecting All-Purpose Cleaner in the home carefree. Yes! Like dog slobbing on the coffee table and cleaning it with Clorox Carefree? He's on a roll now. Spit toothpaste on the faucet. You got it. You got it. Peanut butter on the light switch. Oh, spritz, spritz. Spritz, spritz. Clorox, man. Clean feels good. Okay, we're back. Use as directed.
On day 3, the prosecution introduced more witnesses. After Deputy Q testified about responding to Collin's 911 call about being locked out, Bree's ex took the stand. Yes, her ex, which she shared her 12-year-old daughter with. So I am going to play a little bit of this man's testimony for you, but let me just introduce him quickly. His name is James Hardy Joyner, and it turns out that he's a special agent with the DEA, the Drug Enforcement Agency. He's been doing that job for about 4 or 5 years. He explained that he and Bree had previously been in a relationship together and that they shared a 12-year-old daughter. The 12-year-old had been living with Bree and Collin prior to Collin's death, and he had visitation every other weekend with his daughter. Hardy explained that on the day of the shooting, Collin had actually texted him at around 6 p.m. regarding the argument that he and Bree were having. And here is Hardy reading the text messages for the court.
Can you read the first message that Collin sent you that day?
Yes, sir. Hey, man, Bree's losing it. She ran my laptop through the dishwasher last night because I turned the Wi-Fi off. I'm planning on getting out of here with the little kids, but she's already told me she'll press charges if I take with me. I don't know what you can do legally, but I wanted to give you a heads up.
And how did you respond to Collin?
I said, damn, dude, I hate that. I'm not sure what to do, but thanks for the heads up. I was really hoping that she, referring to Bree, had gotten better.
Okay. And what was Collin's response to you?
She got kicked out of 2 group therapies, and she skipped her last 2 individual therapies. Still drinking a lot.
And what was the time of your next message back to Collin?
It's 18:09, 6:09 p.m., I believe is what it was.
And what did you ask Collin, or what did you say to Collin?
I said, everything okay, man.
And how did Collin respond to you?
He said, nah, gonna be worse before it gets better, too. She's always told her stories about you, and I thought you sucked. But now that I think about it, she's crazy as hell and probably did the same stuff to you.
And how did you respond to Collin?
I said, I definitely had my down days, and I did my share of wrong in the past, but I'm sure there's plenty more to the stories you don't know, as you can probably see now.
And what was Collin's next message to you?
Yup, she just locked me in the garage because I wouldn't talk to her.
And what was the time Collin sent you that message?
6:13 p.m. approximate.
Okay. And how did you respond to Collin's statement about being locked in the garage?
I said, if you ever want to talk, I probably know more about what you're going through than anyone. You were able to keep her happy a lot longer than me, and you somehow have been able to get through to her more than I ever did.
Did you ever have any more communication with Collin?
No, sir.
Okay. Now, again, you didn't speak with him on the phone, so everything you know about the situation that day is in these text messages. Is that fair to say?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And did you discuss any of the things he's telling you about the issues they're having that day? Did you discuss any of that with Bree?
No, sir.
Okay. At some point that day, did you speak with Bree?
I did.
Okay. How did that come about?
She contacted me. She called me. I answered the phone, and she said, you need to come get your daughter to some extent. And I thought, maybe she's just being a 12-year-old. And I said, why do I need to come get my daughter? And she said, I just shot Collin. And I responded, I said, why? And she said, I don't know.
Hardy says he didn't ask any questions. He immediately got into his car and drove to Bree's house. Hardy also described his impression of Collin as a really good stepfather to his daughter. During cross-examination, Hardy explained to the defense that Bree had full custody of their daughter, but again explained that they did have visitation. The defense attorney tried to get Hardy to say, well, you knew that she had been hospitalized for a suicide attempt, right? But Hardy clarified that no, he knew that she had been hospitalized, but didn't know what it was about. The defense attorney argued with Hardy back and forth about his deposition, where he acknowledged that Bree had been hospitalized due to a suicide attempt. But Hardy quickly pointed out that his deposition was after the incident, and it wasn't until after Collin's murder that he discovered what Bree had been in the hospital for. The defense attorney, during his cross-examination, also mixed up who sent what messages in the text between Hardy and Collin on the day of the shooting, but Hardy was quick to correct him, and after that, he was dismissed from the stand. Detective Kelly was recalled to the stand and asked about he and Detective Rawells going to Pennsylvania to talk to Bree's brother, Eric. Remember when I told you that Eric testified under oath that they just showed up, like bloop, they just showed up out of the blue? Well, he lied. Detective Kelly stated that they called him first to ask him to speak. They also arranged to do the interview at the local police station. Eric was the one who suggested they meet at his business, which incidentally is a clothing store. Eric wanted to have an attorney on the phone while the detectives spoke to him, which they said was fine. The prosecutor asked Detective Kelly what the nature of their conversation was prior to the interview. He answered that they kind of bantered about Eric's business, and then he asked the detectives why they needed to speak to him. Detective Kelly stated that they told him that it was important that they talk to him in person. The defense disputed Detective Kelly's responses on cross-examination, but all of Detective Kelly's answers were fully supported with his testimony and the evidence that had been submitted. The prosecution objected to a couple of the questions from the defense, who just sounded like they were reaching for anything. Detective Kelly was excused from any further testimony after they finished. On September 27, 2024, 4 days after they gave their opening statements, the prosecution and defense made their closing arguments. The only thing that stood out to me about either statement was when Bree's defense attorney, no kidding, said, quote, "We started the case with a bang. I guess, pun intended," end quote. When the prosecution provided a rebuttal, he had Collin's last 911 call play again. When the first gunshot rang out in the courtroom, as I mentioned, Bree physically jumped at the sound. After the tape was done playing, Prosecutor Alderman told the jury, quote, "Bree Kuhn murdered her husband, Collin. Now it's time for you to make that official and find her guilty of first-degree premeditated murder. Thank you," end quote. 2 hours later, the jury was ready to deliver their verdict, or at least that's what people thought. Before they re-entered the courtroom, the camera was trained on Bree and one of her attorneys sitting at the defense table. As they spoke to each other, you can see Bree's various facial expressions, when suddenly she looks at her attorney with the biggest grin. She leans in and she looks like she's laughing. The frame of her with the huge smile was on every news outlet that I came across while researching this case. I don't know about you, but if I were on trial for first-degree premeditated murder, I might be a little more reserved. To each their own, I guess. Honestly, I would force myself to wear a COVID mask because I have a hard time. Basically, if my mouth doesn't say it, my face surely will. Okay, so at this point, the judge breaks the silence and asks Bree's attorney about the other defense attorney who was conspicuously absent. Several minutes go by before the judge announces that all parties have returned to the courtroom. He then says that the jury has come back with 3 questions. Oh goodness, so no verdict yet, just 3 questions. Question number 1, what is the legal definition of depraved? Question number 2. Was there toxicology done on Bree? If so, can we review? Question 3. Why wasn't the body cam video of the Pennsylvania interview available for review? If it is, could we please review? End quote. The judge asked both sides for their input in answering the questions, and both the defense and the prosecuting attorney said that they would direct the jury to review their jury instructions. Judge Duncan agreed and went on to say the depraved mind was defined in the instructions already. Regarding the request for a toxicology report on Bree and body cam video, Judge Duncan sent back his answer, that they must rely on the evidence presented during trial. Both sides concurred. The jury came back in, Judge Duncan relayed his response to them, and then they returned to the jury room to continue their deliberations. They deliberated for another 2 hours, and finally, the jury was ready to present their verdict. The court clerk read the verdict, guilty of first-degree premeditated murder as charged. Judge Duncan asked the lawyers if either side would like the jury polled. The defense said yes. The clerk polled each juror, and as she did that, the camera stayed on Bree. She sat there, emotionless, not crying, not smiling, not anything. And listen, y'all, Florida doesn't mess around. And immediately they proceeded into sentencing. As soon as the jury left, Judge Duncan asked if everyone was ready to proceed. Before he announced Bree's sentence, Collin's parents were given the opportunity to present their victim impact statements. I initially thought of not playing these statements, but honestly, I don't think I've ever heard a more concise impact statement that ultimately told the perpetrator that they hoped that she would repent and become part of their eternal family. I mean, I was shedding tears, so get your wipes ready. Here is Collin's mom.
State your name for the record.
Bree Turner.
And how are you related to Collin?
He's my son.
And you had prepared a statement that you wished to read to the judge, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead, ma'am.
Your Honor, this is a letter I never imagined having to write. When I think of the impact the loss of Collin has made on my life, it is difficult to put into words. The grief can wash over at any time. Of course, there are the expected times of grief, such as Mother's Day, his birthday, or the anniversary of his death. There are also unexpected times, like a mother-son dance at a wedding, or when asked how many children I have. There is still a sense of unreality. I can't believe this has happened. I've watched my husband suffer as he misses his son. He is so proud to tell people that Collin was in his last semester of school for his degree in electrical engineering, following in Don's footsteps, and had been accepted into Johns Hopkins for his master's. Collin earned this degree online while being a stay-at-home dad following his retirement from the Marines. Our daughters have had the shock of unexpectedly losing their brother, and as a mother, their pain is my pain. But the greatest impact has been watching how this loss has impacted Collin's younger children. We have custody of them and expect to raise them for the rest of our lives. It's been 3 years, and they're still fearful that we will die and leave them once again without parents. They worry that if we bicker, one of us may kill the other. They still ask if we have guns in the house, though they know the answer is no. No matter how many times we remind them that killing a loved one is very rare, their reality tells them differently. We talk about their dad often, but they'll never really know him as they were so young when he was killed, only 3 and 4 years old. And now, not only has Bree Kuhn killed our son, brother, father, but she's done her best to destroy his reputation. I know Collin was not a perfect man. There is no such thing. But he was not the evil man she described. He was a man who loved his wife and tried his hardest to make things work. He loved his children, retiring from the Marines early so he wouldn't miss any part of their young lives, and now he's not there for them at all due to Bree's actions. We believe Bree would do anything to get her way. She killed our son because he wanted custody of the children, and I believe she would kill again. Our hope is that Bree will receive a life sentence without parole. We plan to adopt and give them the security to know they don't need to worry about changing families again. Our faith has carried us along this journey, and we know the Lord will continue to carry us. He is willing that all should repent and be saved from their sins, including Bree. That is also our hope, that she would be made new in Christ and have eternal life with him. Thank you.
Here is Collin's dad.
Sir, would you please state your name for the record?
Donald Turner.
And how are you related to Collin?
I'm his dad.
And you had prepared a statement that you wanted to read to the judge, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Did you also bring some pictures of Collin that you wanted to show?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
It won't be nearly as polished as my wife. Bree has deprived the world of a loving son, brother, father, grandson, friend, and leader. In the first few days after Collin died, and since then, we have been so blessed with all the people that reached out to us and said how Collin had impacted them in such a positive way. Neighbors, Marine friends, people we had never even met. We saw the love that he gave to the world, and the world desperately needs loving leaders like Collin now more than ever before. We call this God's light in the darkness. The darkness has not won. We know how this movie ends. The light wins. Hallelujah. There's the Marine that never dreamed of going to college, who is now about to complete his engineering degree, all because Collin gave him the confidence that he could do it. There's the Marine that would not accept payment for work on Collin and Bree's house because he was honoring Collin. And there's the Marine that told of a time that he overheard a conversation between Collin and me. We were having a very casual conversation, and the Marine said, "Who are you talking to?" And he said, "That's my dad. He's my best friend." 12 Marines traveled from as far as California to attend Collin's memorial. We were blessed with a son for 33 years, and I know many people are not that fortunate. So many stories of people working with Collin and saying he was the best leader they ever knew. He was only 2 classes away from completing his electrical engineering degree, and I'm happy to say that his school granted his degree posthumously, and I will have that hanging on my wall forever. He had already been accepted into a master's degree program in electrical engineering, and oh, the love that he has for those kids. They are thriving. As the song says, if love is an ocean, they are all drowning. Collin even took on the challenge of homeschooling Bree's daughter during COVID. He always treated like his own daughter, as we treat her as a granddaughter today. Neighbors of theirs told us they never saw Bree doing anything with the kids, but Collin was often playing with them. Bree's parents told us more than once that Collin was the best thing that ever happened to her and helped with her stability. When we first heard of Collin's death, without hesitation, we knew we had to care for. I'm happy to say they are thriving. They're doing well academically and in their citizenship. They're surrounded by church, neighbors, friends that love them deeply and will do anything for them. Collin's friends keep in touch with us and offer whatever they can do to help the kids. My prayer for them each night is that they will know God, love God, serve God and his children. I'm confident that will make a loving impact on the world. All our family ever tried to do was love on Bree and make her part of our family, but she couldn't accept that for some reason. Bree has never once showed remorse to us, sympathy, empathy, comfort, or consolation. If Bree were to go free at some point, I am concerned for our lives. She's continued to have an adversarial relationship with us, and I believe she would seek out to murder us as well. Her personality is such that she must win at all costs. I have the same fear for Collin's son from another marriage. Most important part of this whole letter, of one thing I am certain, we serve a God that loves us so much that he gave his son to make a way that we could spend eternity with him and with our loved ones. I am confident that I will spend eternity with Collin. Our prayer is that God would make himself real to Bree and her family, and that she will join our eternal family. I have some pictures, Your Honor.
It should come as no surprise that Bree Kuhn did not make a statement. Judge Duncan announced that Bree Kuhn would be sentenced to life in prison. She would not be eligible for parole. All right, for those of you like me wondering what the Navy did about this case, well, they did nothing. Absolutely nothing. Well, maybe not nothing, but listen to this. The U.S. Navy determined that Bree Kuhn would not face military discipline after her guilty verdict and life sentence were handed down. In an article in the Pensacola News Journal, a NAS Pensacola spokesperson stated, quote, Chief Bree Kuhn is in the process of being separated from the U.S. Navy and will no longer be subject to the UCMJ. As such, she will not undergo military disciplinary action, end quote. But get this. I get that she had her day in court. Okay, I get that. But the Navy discharged her with a general discharge. That's the same type of administrative discharge that people get for using drugs or getting 2 DUIs on active duty. Murdering a man in cold blood should at least, at minimum, warrant an under other than honorable discharge service characterization, also known as a UOTHC. But that's just my personal opinion. Bree Kuhn, no kidding, received a general discharge from the U.S. Navy. At least that's what that article says. I'm not sure if this was done so that her VA benefits wouldn't be affected, but I did look up how incarceration affects VA benefits eligibility, and I did see that, quote, all or part of the compensation not paid to an incarcerated veteran may be apportioned to the veteran's children based on individual need, end quote. The thing about this is that this does not apply to Bree's case since she was convicted of a felony. So I don't know what the Navy was thinking giving this lady a general discharge. Well, we probably haven't heard the last of Bree because on October 11th, just this month, 2024, Bree Kuhn filed an appeal seeking a change to her sentence. I'll post updates on my socials / Patreon regarding the results of that appeal and any future appeals that she may file. Of course, I like to end all of my episodes talking about the victim. Collin James Turner was 33 years old when his life was taken. 33. He was born on December 28, 1987, to parents Don and Therese Turner. After he graduated from Southfield Lathrop High School in Southfield, Michigan, Collin joined the United States Marine Corps on September 1, 2006. He was trained in security before moving into explosive ordnance disposal, EOD, where, according to his obituary, was his proudest time while serving in the Marines. After 14 years of service, Collin retired at the rank of Gunnery Sergeant, or E7. As his parents both spoke so proudly of his accomplishments during their impact statements, it's absolutely worth saying again that Collin was 2 classes shy of graduating and was posthumously awarded an honorary bachelor's degree in electrical engineering from Arizona State University, and he had already been accepted into an electrical engineering graduate program through Johns Hopkins. The most important things in Collin's life were his children, his 2 sons and 1 daughter by blood, and his stepdaughter who he loved like his own. Collin was laid to rest at the Whitechapel Cemetery in Troy, Michigan. I know this episode was much longer than most, but with the trial being publicized and having the ability to see what happened the day of Collin's murder, I think it's important to tell and hear what happened in their own words. My heart goes out to Collin's family, his kids, and I pray that his kids feel so loved. I am so happy that they ended up with Collin's parents, who didn't seem to hesitate for even a second to take those 2 kids as their own. And when you listen to Bree's conversation with her father, you see that her part of the family was more hesitant to take the kids. Shout out to Margot for researching and writing this episode for me. My sources for this episode include the fully litigated trial, which is available on YouTube and was aired on Law and Crime and Court TV, as well as articles found in the Pensacola News Journal, Leatherneck Locator, and Find a Grave. Military Murder Podcast was created by Mama Margot Productions. The music was created by Ty-Ops. Until next time, remember, you never really know what someone is capable of, so remain vigilant always. You have a fabulous week, and I'll keep digging to bring you another military murder story next week.
Mama's working on her podcast. I don't want to.